Hi, welcome back to another edition of Veterans Corner. I'm State Senator Kevin Witkos, and I'm very pleased to have here at the state capitol today Mark Jurras, who actually had 2 lives serving in the military, which we'll get into a little bit later, but he proudly served in World War II as a sergeant. Right. And then following his career in the Army during World War II, he went and joined the reserves and retired as a major with the U.S. Army Reserve. So, Mark, congratulations on being Veteran of the Month, and thank you, and welcome to the Connecticut State Capitol.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very impressed with the building.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's because of people like yourself that allow those of us who serve in this capacity to make sure that democracy reigns forever in our country. But I want to go back to what life was like for you, and I guess you grew up and was born in Vermont.
Montpelier, Vermont. People used to ask me, where are you from? I tell them it was state capital, 8,000 people, 10,000 cows.
And is that the Granite State? Am I right? Yeah. The Granite State is Vermont, right? Yeah. And so you were born, and did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had a brother. He served in the military in New Guinea.
So we're in the early 40s, late 30s. You're coming of age. You're turning 18, and you graduated from high school.
Right.
And then what happened? Did you get something in the mail?
No, I expected it at any time, but I had a small scholarship, so I went to the Vermont Junior College.
Okay.
And while we were there, a reserve dentist taught us how to march. Can you imagine that? Marching up and down. But it was helpful. When you got in, you knew more than the guy next to you.
So you're from cow country,
yeah.
Right? And you met this dentist,
yeah.
Who was serving at the junior college. Or was he a professor there, or was he?
No, he was a local dentist.
Okay.
In the reserve, and that was his patriotic duty to get us straightened out. Said, "You're going to be marching. I'll show you how to march." So
we already kind of knew, because in Europe the war was going on, and we hadn't entered the war. Everybody says, we entered the war on December 7, 1941. Yeah. So where were you December 7, 1941? Were you still at the junior college?
I remember coming out, I went to a church service in the evening, and when we came out, the news was just rippling through town.
Sure. And then what? You just expected, well, I guess we're going to war.
At some point, we're going to war.
Right. And how old were you then?
I would have been 18.
Prime age for the draft.
Yeah.
So what happened then?
Well, I finished. I got pretty much a year out of at the little school, and then I got called, and a group of about 15 of us were assembled at the courthouse. I was appointed acting corporal, and my job was to carry the paperwork to Fort Devens.
So Montpelier, back in the 1940s, couldn't have been a very highly populated community, was it?
8,000 people.
8,000. So 15 of you, that's a large percentage of young men that would be called up to go fight for their country.
And I carried the paperwork as acting corporal to Fort Devens. I'd been in Fort Devens once before because my uncle was a master sergeant there. He went in the service in 1924. Just to fill in, he ended up in Hawaii with his family before the bombing, and immediately he ended up in New Jersey in officers candidate school for the Signal Corps, and my aunt and cousin came all the way home with a big ticket on them, and that ticket allowed them to go anywhere. It gave them passage on the trains or whatever it was.
So you got your card in the mail, I guess, if you want to say simplify it. Yeah. Report for duty. You went to your local courthouse. You met with 15 other guys. They made you the acting corporal. They said, "Go deliver all of our paperwork to Fort Devens," and that's in Massachusetts, right?
Right.
And so you went and delivered the paperwork.
Yeah.
Then where did you go for your initial swearing in?
They issued equipment and clothing and so forth, and then a bunch of us were just hanging around, so they decided they'd put us to work. And I always love this story because it's that sort of thing, like anybody wants to do something, step forward. Well, I didn't step forward, but they still picked me. You won't believe this. There was a warehouse full of oats. And I'm saying to myself...
Like the grain oats?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm saying to myself, I didn't know this was a cavalry operation, a whole warehouse. And the rats have eaten holes in every bag. So we rebagged oats for a day, and the next day some other group went in and rebagged oats. So all the new recruits were bagging oats and wondering what's going on. But then we ended up, our unit was formed, and the cadre came from the West Coast. We went to North Carolina, and...
Is that Fort Bragg down there? Where did you go?
On the coast, Fort Fisher.
Okay.
We were anti-aircraft, 40-millimeter cannons and quad 50s.
What's a quad 50? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's 4 machine guns on a platform that has an engine on it. It rotates and goes up and down like this. It's just so you can follow an airplane.
Sure.
And then training basically was for the boys in the batteries. Airplanes would fly back and forth with a sleeve, and you got your good marks if you hit the sleeve. So then we went to Blackstone, Virginia for maneuvers, and then back to Devens. I got on a ship and went to England.
How much training did you have from the time you left Devens to you completed your training in South Carolina and then Virginia and then back to Devens?
The best I can remember, I was on the rifle range once.
Once?
Yeah. But, I was just had to get accustomed to all the paperwork and so forth. And the colonel we had was a teacher from the South, and he was a good old boy. But I have to tell you, we were on a ship, a small ship that used to fly between Florida and Havana. It was round-bottomed and not very big. And the inclinator inside that thing would go from one extreme to the other. I thought any time we were going to tip over. But because of the roughness in the North Atlantic in March of '44, we were in a convoy of at least 800 or 1,000 ships.
Wow.
But because we rolled so much, it wasn't very pleasant inside because everybody's tossing their cookies.
Now, you said you were on your way to England.
Yeah.
And why were you going to England?
Well, because that's where a unit was assigned to a spot in England to help guard the invasion fleet. So we landed at Gurrick, Scotland, ended up in Wales, drawing all our equipment. And to this day, I marvel that when we got there, all the equipment we needed was there. That meant some planning organization said this unit's going to be there, and they need 32 of this and 32 of that, and so we got our equipment. We did not. It was semi-mobile, so we didn't have enough trucks to pull all the gear. Had to borrow them. But one of my highlights of that was we were trucked over to. I can't think of the name of the capital of Wales. I can't think of it right now. But from here to this, the Queen and King of England went by just like from here to here.
Really?
Yeah. It was first time I saw a big limousine and people in it.
Wow.
Yeah. Shortly then, we ended up in southwest England. In Falmouth Harbor, and we were guarding the harbor along with a British outfit. And we fortunately got to live on a very fancy English estate.
How was the British outfit when you got there? Were they well equipped? Were they demoralized? I mean, because Britain had been involved in the war a lot longer than we had at this time, and we were telling me 43, so we're 2 years into it, but they had been into it for several years before us. So what was their stamina like there?
I think they were glad to know that we were there to help them, that's basically. But the interesting thing about their outfit, they were an anti-aircraft outfit too, but they had all female handling the communications, and to a bunch of kids from the States.
You like those sights, I bet.
Yeah, well, we didn't see them so much as we heard them,
Okay.
in a strange way of speaking. So it was a lot of fun. But,
because we didn't have women in the military serving in any frontline capacity
but
during World War II.
They did.
But they did.
Yeah, at least in England. I don't know about if that unit ever went overseas. But
now your unit was there. Correct me if I'm wrong. To prepare and defend our forces as they were preparing for the invasion of Normandy.
Yeah,
right. And my history lesson, if I remember correctly, tells me that there was debate on what day that was going to occur based on weather.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? You were front and center. You were front lines. Did you guys catch wind of that at all, or
no?
That only came out afterwards?
We were such a pleasant setting. The only thing we realized that the invasion was going to start was when 8 battleships went across the end of the bay one day. So shortly after that, things happened. But we were supposed to be on the first wave, but our good old colonel went up to Plymouth and convinced them it was ridiculous to pull us out of our positions, bring another outfit and put them in our position just so we could go first. He said, let the other outfit go first.
Right.
He was good at that. So we didn't get to go until about a month after the invasion. And we went over on a freighter.
And you stayed as an anti-aircraft battalion, so that was your job function?
I was in the corporate headquarters. Battalion headquarters.
Okay. And the battalion headquarters is mobile, so it moves wherever. As the troops move, you move.
Yeah. Our units were usually 10 or 15 miles out ahead of us.
Okay.
And we were in communication by radio and maintained a listening post and so forth for I was living in a very beautiful horse barn. I mean, this gentleman had a lot of money, and he had a beautiful estate, and so we were housed in the barns.
So how did that work? Did they, when you were there, as you were, the battle lines were,
kept moving.
The Allied forces were moving forward. Everything moves with it.
Yeah.
And so, did you guys happen to be coming along the countryside? Hey, that looks like a good place for us to set up shop, or was that already prearranged for you when you got there?
Pretty much prearranged. In other words, as the front moved, we moved.
Right.
Although we weren't at the front.
Right. Mm-hmm. And how did you end up in this nice horse barn?
Well, I don't know, but it was very pleasant. Today it's a national park.
Really?
Yeah. Beautiful grounds. I slept in the barns, in a horse stall.
Yeah.
We had a bombing one night, and I didn't believe it because I didn't hear a thing. So they dragged me out into the middle of the big lawns, and there was a big hole.
Wow.
Never heard it. But it was
Did you do rotational watches? Second shift, third shift? I'm not sure how that worked, but was it hard to see aircraft at night on that?
Yeah.
Or the moonlight, if it was a full moon?
The British had lights. We didn't have them.
Okay.
But very little activity. But we had to be ready. They could come anytime.
Did you see any French militia? Did you serve with any of them? Or is it just really the British and the Americans?
The British and Americans, once we landed in France, I went into Omaha Beach. We moved inland about 5 miles and into an orchard, and that was we hunkered down there, and we dug a pit for the headquarters. Mm-hmm. So we had to listen to the radios and so forth, and with the lights were were generated by a little generator, a gasoline generator, and the lights started sputtering. I was with a major. Then I guess I was still a private, and guess who had to go outside and fill the gas?
Well, rank has its privileges, right?
Its privileges. The interesting thing about it, I stepped out, and it was it took me a few minutes to get used to the darkness, and the moon was out. And I started to work on that, filling the generator, and I realized that there was a parachute over the top of the tree.
You saw it coming in?
No.
Oh, you could just see it up in the trees?
Just over there. The thing was, whoever had a mission, he dropped in, found himself amongst other troops, and he snuck out of there. Never knew, we never knew what he was up to, but he obviously was inserted to do something. He could have easily just dropped a hand grenade in that hole,
wow.
And I would not be talking to you today.
Jeez.
I brought that parachute home with me, and somewhere when my brother moved, or somehow it got lost.
Was it a German parachute,
yeah.
Japanese? What?
No, German.
Wow.
With markings.
That's very interesting. I mean, people, even though you're still 15 miles, 10, 15 miles back from the front line.
This guy comes.
You're still being bombed because there's craters. You have parachutists coming in.
Yeah.
It could be a recon mission. Who knows? Like you said.
But,
so where were you when the war ended?
Let's see.
Had you finished your tour?
I was in Germany.
Had you finished your tour?
No.
Overseas, no.
We pushed on. It took a while to get into Germany. And I just recounted. You've probably seen pictures how they got fuel from England to France. They laid a big pipeline, and it's an interesting story. But we saw the aspect of from the end of the pipeline to the troops. And we got to calling it the Red Ball Highway, and these trucks ran day and night, lights on at night, and they would stop because they were freezing to death. Take a 5-gallon can off they were full of 5-gallon cans of gas. They'd take one off and fire it off to warm up. There's no heaters in the trucks.
Oh, okay.
And then they go on, but they were trying to keep up with Patton.
Sure.
They talk a lot, and that ran day and night, lights on. It was very, very vital. But because we could see the red glare in the distance, we call it the Red Ball Highway.
How did you feel, or did you see the country folk when you entered through France and the villages and into Germany? Were the people rejoicing? Are they happy to see the Allied troops, or
I can tell
not
you this.
so much?
We were only there a few weeks, and then we were sent down to the coast of Brittany to take over a German air base. And while I was there, they tried to remove an impacted tooth. So I've got a jaw this big, and they tried to fix the ingrown toenail, and I couldn't get a boot on. So when we got orders to move beyond Paris, they threw me in the back of a truck, and I got to observe both sides of the road. Coming out of France toward the shore were thousands of people evacuating, pushing baby carriages, pulling carts, and all their worldly possessions on their back. And on the other side were dead horses, burning tanks, burning trucks. So Patton was rolling through, but the people were trying to get away from the action. But
I have this image in my brain of today's refugees trying to escape Syria. Was it similar to that?
It was. But that was all on the left side, and the right side was all the damage, dead horses and burning trucks. So we got to go through Paris when they were still celebrating the fact that they were relieved of the German occupation. They pulled up to a hospital, French hospital, took me in, and then drove off. And all I'm thinking to myself, will I ever see these guys again? So the doctor, they put Novocaine on my toe, and he started going before it took effect, and I came up I was going to whack him one, and the big nurse went, shoom, threw me back onto the table. Then after that, they took me up the hall, and the guy with a chisel went in there, tung, split the coot. And then I'm worried, am I going to end up in a rifle company or a tank company or something like that? But the colonel was kind enough to send for me. And after,
oh, you were a valued guy.
Well, I like to think so, but while we were sitting in England, hour after hour with nothing to do, he got out the cribbage board, taught me how to play cribbage, and I must have played 10,000 hands of cribbage during the war.
As long as you didn't beat him, then he probably wanted you to come back. He had a nice sparring partner, if you will.
I got fair.
So you came back, you retired from service?
Well, I came back,
the Army.
I was back on December the 5th in 45, and in January I was in school. And
back up in Vermont?
University of Vermont. And I ran through my meager savings from the war, and I heard about they paid $27 a month for ROTC. I couldn't get there fast enough.
You said $27 a month.
Yeah, in those days it was not bad. I mean, it got me through. But I ended up as the battalion commander, 250 troops, and I got to fire a full regular Army colonel. Typical of the Army, this guy was an alcoholic, so they shoved him around in different commands. So they sent him to us, sent him to us, and I'd have a inspection every Saturday in a big enclosed area, and out he comes. This guy comes out drunk as a skunk, and he grabs a rifle, drops the rifle, and of course. Here, the impression for all these young kids,
right?
Like, who is this guy? So I
made a bird on his shoulder.
You know, so I went to the regular ROTC group that runs the show, and they said, "Got to get rid of this guy." He says, "You're the guy that has to do it." I said, "Me?" So I had to dress up in my outfit, make an appointment with the president of the university, got in his office, and told him my plight. He says, "I'm so glad you're here." He says, "I'm having problems with it too," because he was chasing girls on campus. So he ends up, they ship him out, of course. He goes up to upper state New York. And the next year, my summer duty was at that same post. And I kept in a low profile.
Oh, you were up in New York?
Yeah.
Well, you know what they say, sometimes what goes around comes around, so I'm glad you survived your New York post.
Well, it's just a sidelight. Being on the North Atlantic in the middle of March is a pretty rough place to be. With a round bonnet boat doing this, everybody's sick except me. And I'm going to be sick if I stay inside. So I went out and lived on deck. And it was very cold, but I managed to survive. And except for a dinner that I shared with the officers, unbeknownst to them, I ate Tootsie Rolls.
Right.
I ate so many Tootsie Rolls that I've yet to eat a Tootsie Roll all these years. But being on deck, I saw, unfortunately, you look ahead and you see a big ball of fire, and you know that a submarine had just hit that ship, and down it went. And you kept expecting it's going to be left or right.
Right. Did you have to do anything? Were you reactivated at all in the reserves? Or you got to just serve out your additional number of years?
When I graduated from
stateside?
From ROTC, I had a congressional appointment as a lieutenant in the regular Army. I figured I'd had enough Army, so I turned it down and went into the reserve. But the thing I like to remember is that, you remember Ethan Allen, the story of Ethan Allen, captured Fort Ticonderoga? I'm the second guy in the world that captured Fort Ticonderoga. He had 75 men and a few rowboats. I had a naval vessel, landing craft, 250 men, and I could call on the Vermont State Air Guard, National Guard, and which I did, and we captured the fort. Now, I like to joke that he was a lot smarter than I was, because he started a string of furniture stores.
And you bought stock in Tootsie Roll.
No, I didn't.
You know, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. And at the conclusion, we always invite our guests the opportunity to pass on a message to anybody that's currently serving in our military or is thinking about serving. I just want to give you the opportunity now to share a message with folks that may be watching the show.
Well, get as much education as you can before you go in, and after you come out, get some education. The Army is not the military is a pretty good place to be. It's very well organized. You may not like the regimentation, but they take care of you, and you get to learn to shoot. But I think, well, I shouldn't say that on the air.
This is your time. You feel free to say whatever's on your mind.
I think my impressions were with all these men from all over the place. My group was mostly from New England, but I have a sense that if I don't get an education, I'm not going to make it. So I couldn't get to school fast enough.
Good for you.
Yeah.
What a message. I think that's an education is the foundation for everything in today's world and going off into the future.
I ended up in Springfield, Missouri. I helped build a plant out there and eventually became plant manager. But I had a decision. Am I going to go for my LC or get a master's in business administration? And I chose the latter, and it paid off.
Great.
Yeah.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Education is the foundation of everything. I'd like to congratulate and thank my guest today, U.S. Army Major Mark Jurras, for his accomplishments, for helping us do everything that we're allowed to do in the state of Connecticut and the country of the United States of America. If it wasn't for dedication for people like you, sir, we wouldn't be able to do what we do today. I want to congratulate you and thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to present to you a certificate naming you the November 2015 Veteran of the Month. And this recognizes your incredible dedication to your country and brave service to the United States Army during World War II. Again,
excellent. Well, that's like
congratulations.
Nice. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next month as we meet another interesting veteran like U.S. Army Major Mark Jurras on Veterans Corner. That's all for now.